Few people who ever experienced it will ever forget that initial train trip that took them off to their unit to begin national service. You didn't really know what to expect. Of course, they had heard all the stories from friends who were already doing national service or just completed it. Yet these did nothing to quell the nerves. If anything, they just made you more apprehensive. If you're lucky, there'd be someone on the train that had been to the same school as you. Even if it was someone you'd never spoken to at school, you would still try and stick together. Hey, misery loves company. More often than not, though, you would be stuck on the train with a bunch of total strangers. Edward was 17 when he was called up to 5-Sign Ladysmith in January 1980. This is what he remembers about his train trip.
I guess that until I went into the army, I had led a very sheltered life. I grew up in a good neighborhood in Johannesburg and went to a private school. I was a prefect at school and was also a member of the chess club and the debating society. I was also very involved in our church youth group, and all of my friends were from the same background as I was. When we boarded the train at Johannesburg station, I was put in a compartment with 5 other guys. I remember that 2 of them were from the south of Johannesburg, and the other was a small Portuguese-speaking guy from Bez Valley. There was one bloke in the compartment I'll never forget. He was from Hillbrow, and was the vilest creature I'd ever laid eyes on at the time. He had long greasy black hair, and his face had this permanent snarl on it. He was wearing a really dirty jeans and black t-shirt with no sleeves. His arms were covered in tattoos, and even his fingernails were filthy. 2 of his habits were most charming. First of all, he chain smoked, flicked his ash all over the floor of our compartment, and he also spat a great deal. He kept on spitting out of the window and even spat on the floor a few times. I was totally disgusted. When he did speak, every second word out of his mouth was a swear word. About half an hour after the train had left Johannesburg, he reached into his bag and took out half a bottle of brandy he had hidden in it. Then he drank it straight from the bottle. Within a few minutes, I couldn't believe my eyes. Not long after he had finished his brandy, he started getting very aggressive. He was cursing and swearing at the army and said he didn't give a damn about them or about anyone. He tried to pick a fight with all of us in the compartment and really became loud. 2 of the army guys on the train came into the compartment and told him to shut up. Then he started abusing them and threatening them. They went taking it from him and forcibly removed him from the compartment. I don't know where they took him, but I didn't see him for the rest of the trip. I didn't sleep at all and was still awake when we arrived in Ladysmith at about 2 the following morning. I was horrified. I really was. Was this the type of person I would be spending the next year of my life with? I really didn't know if I could handle it. All I wanted to do right then was get off the train and go home. I wasn't ready for it. When I look back at it now, I still have mixed feelings about it. There were some incidents I would rather not remember, yet I must admit that I grew up a lot in the army. I also made some good friends who I still keep in touch with.
Mark was 18 when called up to Whittle, and he also remembers his train trip. I was from Cape Town and had just been called up to the Technical Services School in Pretoria. Before we got on the train, the army guys weren't too bad to us. Once we boarded the train, though, it was a different story. I was in a compartment with 5 other guys, none of whom I knew from a bar or so. The train had those metal shutters on the windows, and we had to keep them up for the entire trip. I mean, now we're going through some of the most beautiful scenery, and you can't even look at it. The reason for this, later learned, was so that the enemy couldn't look into the train and see how many troops were on board. I mean, how ridiculous was that? We also had to keep the door to our compartment open the entire time. The only time you could leave a compartment was to go to the toilet. The corridors were filled with corporals and military police, and if one of them walked into your compartment, for some reason they did often, you would have to jump to your feet. The train left Cape Town about midday, and we must have stopped at every little station where more conscripts boarded the train. At about 6:30 at night, some guy came around and we were all given a styrofoam cup. Then, about half an hour later, they came around with supper. We were given a cup of coffee and 2 sandwiches. Coffee was really shitter. It was really cheap instant coffee with milk powder and sugar already thrown in. We each received 1 cheese sandwich and 1 bologna sandwich. The cheese was rock hard and the bread was stale. A corporal walked into our compartment and we all jumped up. He asked us how we were enjoying the supper. One of the guys in my compartment explained that he was diabetic and he couldn't drink the coffee because it had too much sugar in it. I mean, the corporal just picked up the cup and poured the coffee over the guy's head. Well, don't drink it then, the corporal smirked. I couldn't believe what I'd just seen there. I mean, how do you behave like that? We were given no blankets or anything when we had to go to bed. You just slept on the bunk, just like that. When we put the lights out, I lay on the top bunk and I began to cry. I must have been about 10 years old the last time I cried. But at that moment, I felt so homesick, so alone, and a little bit scared. We didn't get much sleep that night. Every so often a corporal or MT would walk into the compartment, switch on the light, and we'd all have to jump up again. This carried on almost for the entire night. For breakfast the next morning, we were given coffee, a banana, and a boiled egg. My banana was frotte, and the inside of my egg was blue. I wasn't really hungry, but I ate it anyway because I didn't want to get into shit. We arrived in Pretoria at about 3 that afternoon, and then the fun really began. Thanks for watching. Please remember to leave a comment and to share this video. If you're not already a subscriber, then please subscribe to our channel. Many thanks.